It was a serene Sunday evening in Virginia, just 2 days before Ron Youngblood was set to relocate to Missouri with his daughter Brooklyn. Earlier that day, he had watched her walk away, hand in hand with her mother, Veronica. Everything seemed perfectly normal. There were no indications that anything was amiss. However, later that night, Ron's phone lit up with a voicemail from Veronica. It was brief, but the words she spoke would shatter his world. Initially, he struggled to comprehend the gravity of the message, but the truth would soon hit him, and it was far worse than he could have ever imagined. As Ron approached the end of his military career, he felt it was finally time to settle down and build a family. After years of missions, relocations, and the demanding lifestyle of a soldier, he longed for stability. In 2007, an assignment took him to Argentina, where he met Veronica, a charming woman with a young daughter named Sharon. Their family soon expanded with the birth of Brooklyn. When they were relocated to San Diego, Ron felt he had everything he had ever wanted: a loving wife, 2 daughters, and a home filled with warmth. However, just before a mission to Qatar in late 2013, cracks began to appear in their seemingly perfect life. One evening, Ron returned home to find Veronica drastically changed. Her long, light hair, something she had always taken pride in, was cut short and dyed dark. It wasn't just a new look, it felt like a transformation. When he inquired about the change, she brushed off his questions, offering no explanations, only distance. On the day of his deployment, Ron asked her to take him to the airport, but she refused. He kissed his daughters goodbye, feeling a sense of unease as he climbed into a taxi. That moment lingered in his mind, a hollow farewell that would haunt him during his 6-month deployment. Upon arriving in Qatar, Ron connected to the internet from his quarters, and messages began to appear on their shared family phone plan. However, some texts were not meant for him. One thread in particular caught his eye: romantic messages exchanged between Veronica and another man. She wrote about how much she loved kissing him and how she missed his touch. The intimacy was undeniable, and Ron felt utterly devastated. When he confronted Veronica, she did not deny the affair. Instead, she confessed that she was in love with the other man and planned to marry him, moving back to Argentina. Ron calmly told her that if she wanted a divorce, they could proceed, but he would not allow her to take Brooklyn away from him. Veronica responded with a chilling threat. "We're only 10 miles from the Mexican border. You really think I can't just cross and take a flight to Argentina?" That moment sent a shiver down Ron's spine. The next 5.5 months in Qatar were torturous. He felt helpless, paralyzed by distance, and haunted by the fear of losing his daughters. Then, unexpectedly, Veronica changed her tone. She expressed regret, saying she missed him and wanted to give their marriage another chance. Hoping to keep his family intact, Ron agreed to try again. An opportunity arose for him to transition from pilot to military attaché, and Veronica supported the move, leading them to Honduras. But within 2 months, history repeated itself. Ron discovered new messages revealing that Veronica was planning to move to Miami with another man. When he confronted her, she showed no remorse. All she wanted was to leave Honduras, taking Brooklyn and Sharon with her. At that moment, Ron realized that nothing had changed. The trust was gone, and there was no future left in their marriage. They agreed to divorce, but things took a darker turn when Ron received a call from the U.S. Embassy. They wanted to meet with him, and when he arrived, they asked that Veronica remain inside. Then came the shocking question: "How often do you hit your wife?" Ron was stunned. Veronica had gone to the Honduran authorities, accusing him of physical and emotional abuse toward her and the girls, claiming she feared for her life. Ron understood the weight of her words. In Honduras, diplomatic immunity did not apply in domestic violence cases. The embassy's legal team urged him to leave the country immediately, fearing a setup that could lead to him losing everything or even ending up in a Honduran prison. They fled without time to plan. Back in the U.S., Veronica and the girls stayed with her sister while Ron found a small apartment. But Veronica was not finished. She contacted his superiors, accusing him of neglect, claiming the girls had no food and slept on the floor. The consequences for Ron could have been catastrophic: a court-martial, loss of career, even jail time. He began to suspect that her motivations were financial. Shared custody meant less financial support for her. He knew the accusations were lies, but repeated lies can become weapons. He was forced to prove his innocence time and again. Looking back, Ron realized that Veronica would go to any lengths to get what she wanted, regardless of the damage left in her wake. She was relentless and unrepentant, and as painful as it was, he had no choice but to walk away from the woman who had once been his entire world. For Ron Youngblood, being doubted as a father, husband, or even a decent man was a crushing blow. He had always taken pride in those roles: provider, protector, parent. Every accusation made against him during the unraveling of his marriage was investigated. Ron's only goal was to defend himself, protect his relationship with his daughters, and avoid doing anything that could be twisted against him. He submitted receipts, answered questions, and followed every protocol. The authorities were satisfied, but deep down, Ron believed Veronica's true aim was not just to hurt him, it was to provoke him, hoping he would lash out and give her an advantage in the custody battle. She wanted control and used their daughters as tools to assert it. The woman Ron had met in Argentina was gone. In her place was someone manipulative and dishonest, someone who weaponized motherhood and fatherhood to gain power. At that point, Veronica had full custody of the girls and complete control over when or if Ron could see them. She exploited this to her advantage. Ron sought legal counsel and filed for divorce. His attorneys advised him to spend as much time as possible with the girls to show the court he wasn't abandoning them. One afternoon, Ron arrived at Veronica's house for a scheduled visit with Brooklyn, but Veronica opened the door and coldly told him she didn't want him to see her. Brooklyn stood just behind her, crying, wanting to see her father, but her mother said no. Ron was devastated. Veronica wasn't just denying him, she was using Brooklyn to assert dominance, smiling while doing it, fully aware of the pain she was causing. He left and returned the next day, and the day after that. Every day he was careful, so much was at stake, and he couldn't afford to react emotionally. She knew that and exploited it. Sharon, Veronica's older daughter, was in her first year of high school. She was bright, social, and adaptable, making friends easily no matter where they moved. For her 13th birthday, she chose to go camping with Ron instead of with her mom or friends. Veronica was upset by the decision, but for Ron, it meant everything. Sharon never saw him as a stepfather, and he never saw her as anything less than his daughter. They were best friends, biking together, running, and shopping for clothes. Sharon valued his opinion and confided in him about school, boys, and life. The only topic they never touched was what was happening between him and her mother. Life with Veronica had become increasingly erratic. Some days were tolerable, but others were pure chaos. If Ron forgot his wallet, Veronica would flush it down the toilet. She poured bleach on his clothes and submerged his laptop in the bathtub. These were provocations, Ron believed, attempts to make him react. He never did. She resumed her campaign against him, accusing him of physical and emotional abuse. Investigations followed, but again, there was no evidence. In fact, it was determined that Ron and Brooklyn were the ones suffering emotional harm. Even then, Ron couldn't understand where all the anger came from, but he knew he couldn't leave. Leaving meant abandoning the girls, and he couldn't do that. Then came the flood. One afternoon, while Ron was returning from work, Sharon called him in a panic. Water was pouring from the ceiling. He asked where her mother was. She was gone. He was still 20 to 30 minutes away, so he told Sharon to wait outside. He called Veronica, who told him a bizarre story. Brooklyn, then just 3 years old, had turned on both bathroom taps, plugged the drain, locked the door, and returned to bed. The story made no sense. Ron knew it wasn't true. When he got home, water had been running for nearly 10 hours and the house was destroyed. That incident was, in his mind, the clearest sign yet of how unstable Veronica had become. Soon after, their final divorce hearing took place. Custody only applied to Brooklyn, and the judge ruled for joint custody. Ron was required to provide the same standard of living Brooklyn had known while they were married. The court's decision seemed balanced until Veronica tried to overturn it. In July 2018, during a new hearing, Veronica was arrogant, believing that if she refused to comply, she wouldn't be forced to. She even taunted Ron, saying, "They won't let you take her from me." Ron feared she might be right. Losing Brooklyn was his greatest fear. But that day, the judge made it clear Veronica could choose to stay or go, but if Ron was relocating to Missouri, he had the right to take Brooklyn with him. Ideally, Ron would have taken both girls to avoid separating them, but Veronica refused to let Sharon go. For nearly 10 years, Sharon had been his daughter, and letting her go was excruciating. That hearing was the first time Veronica was held accountable when her words had to match her actions. She lost control, and Ron believed that was when she began crafting her next move. August 5th, 2018, just 2 days before Ron was scheduled to move to Missouri with Brooklyn, would shake everything once again. That night, Ron received a call from Veronica. She asked to see Brooklyn that day. Her tone was neutral, neither warm nor hostile. She mentioned she had gone to a gun show with a friend, something that didn't strike Ron as alarming. Veronica had mentioned guns before. It felt like idle conversation. While Brooklyn was getting ready, Veronica gave her daughter a kiss and a hug. Ron told Brooklyn he loved her, and his final memory of her is watching her walk down the sidewalk, hand in hand with her mother. That was the last time he saw her alive. In the middle of the night, Ron was awakened by the light of his phone. He had a voicemail from Veronica. The message was brief and chilling. She said she had shot Brooklyn and Sharon and that she was going to take her own life. She ended the message by saying she hated him. At first, Ron couldn't process it. He played the message again, sitting in disbelief. Then the phone rang. It was the Fairfax Police Department. Trembling, he asked how his daughters were. Brooklyn was dead and Sharon was still alive, but in surgery and not expected to make it. The voicemail would later be used as evidence. Veronica's voice was flat and detached, devoid of emotion. Ron knew immediately it wasn't a threat. It was real. When he arrived at the hospital, Sharon had survived her first operation. She was on a ventilator and unable to speak. Seeing her that way, broken and helpless, crushed Ron. The one person she should have trusted most had done this to her. He leaned close and told her he loved her, urging her to keep fighting and reassuring her that she wasn't alone. When she reached for his finger and squeezed it, he knew she understood. But the battle was only beginning. Sharon endured 4 more surgeries, each one taking more from her, until finally, doctors told Ron there was nothing left to remove. The only thing keeping her alive was the machine. Ron had to make impossible decisions, stepping aside while someone else arranged Brooklyn's funeral because his focus had to be on Sharon. Then came the choice no parent should ever have to face: removing life support. Ron had to let his daughter go. Later, Veronica confessed that she shot Sharon first. When Sharon cried out in pain, she left the room and went into where Brooklyn slept, shooting her in the head. When she emerged and saw that Sharon was still alive, she shot her again. This was not a moment of madness. It had been planned for months, a calculated act of vengeance. She wanted to destroy Ron in the only way she knew how, by taking away the 2 people he loved most. Veronica wasn't sick. She was cruel, cold, and evil. After the killings, she even took photos of herself, her face blank and inhuman. She was no longer the woman Ron had once loved. Ron stated plainly, "Anyone who kills a child is a coward. If she wanted revenge, she should have taken my life. At least then, the girls would still be here." Veronica was eventually sentenced. The penalty could have been death, but Ron asked for life in prison. The girls were gone. Nothing would change that. But at least, he said, keeping her in this world was the only way he could still protect his daughters, ensuring she would never get near another child again. Ron has only a few things left of his girls, a photo of Sharon and a bracelet she made him, found after her death. He wears it always, saying, "Wherever I go, Sharon goes too." Brooklyn, his mini-me, was generous and kind, even at age 5. At her funeral, Ron had her fingerprints engraved into a ring he wears on his hand. It feels, he says, like holding hers. He keeps Brooklyn's ashes. She was never buried. Ron made a memorial in Missouri, a symbol of what was lost. When he dies, he wants their ashes, his and Brooklyn's, mixed together and buried alongside Sharon's bracelet. It's the only way he knows to stay close to them. He used to whisper to them during storms or when they were scared, "I've got you, I'll protect you." But the hardest truth any parent has to learn is this: no matter how much you love them, no matter how strong your promise is, you can't protect them from everything. Ron Young. Bloodwood's story is not just one of tragedy. It's a tale of a father's fierce love, unimaginable loss, and the haunting reality that even the strongest protector cannot shield their children from all harm. His journey serves as a reminder that sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought in uniform. They're fought within the walls of your own home against the very people you once trusted most. Yet Ron continues to fight, not with weapons, but with memory, truth, and love. Because even in loss, a father never stops being a father. Thank you for tuning in. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.